Alright, team, so we're back, of course, talking FF7, we're talking Rebirth, and this weekend was Thailand Game Show, of course, and today was the presentation that Hamaguchi was going to do for FF7 Rebirth. I didn't watch it. I ended up just forgetting to watch it entirely, to be honest. And even if there was going to be something new, we didn't want to watch it live, because obviously I want to react to it if there was. There ended up being something new shown here, or something like that. I don't entirely know. There's a VOD on a particular YouTube channel from Thailand Game Show. It's like 9 minutes of gameplay. It's mostly shit we've seen. It like opens up with our group walking out of the tunnel from Calm and like overlooking the grasslands, kind of talking. And then it rolls through like other gameplay that we've seen from like, you know, like the Calm flashback demo and stuff like that. And then other trailers. But sprinkled throughout, there's just like little tiny bits of new stuff. Like they show some minigame stuff towards the end, and you see like a little bit more of the chocobo racing. Like we see like a chocobo jump across like a gap, like the clouds riding and like floating across to the other side. And we see like the chocobo go around a corner and kind of drift and stuff like that. And you also get a kind of decent look at the Mog House minigame. And for one, we see that like there's a Moogle merchant there. So it might be just like Moggy from like Sector 5, maybe we're going to be collecting Moogle medals, and we can go to this Mog House and like spin those or buy something, because it's called a Moogle merchant. But you're like collecting like the little Mooglettes, like the young, I guess, Moogles or whatever. That's part of the mini game that's going on there. Like, so we do get to learn some new stuff from this bits of gameplay. But I haven't watched it all. Like I said, I kind of skimmed through it. So we're going to kind of do like we do at TGS. I'm just kind of going to watch it and kind of break it down and talk about it as we go. Sort of reaction / breakdown video. Before we hop into it, of course, the gameplay comes from P4G Team on YouTube, and their channel and the video, of course, will be linked in the description below. The first thing maybe worth talking about from this is once we get past like the intro sequence of our group talking outside the tunnel and around Calm, it cuts to like gameplay of Cloud just kind of walking around the world, which is a lot of stuff we've seen from other trailers and gameplay and, or whatever. But the part where we believe to be the Gungaga reactor that we talked about in previous videos, we get a little more of that scene because Cloud actually walked forward and you're seeing all the overgrown rubble or whatever. But then it actually turns around the corner and you get to see more of that area. It's kind of cool.
Just close your eyes and...
I thought that was kind of cool just to see more of that location. I don't know if it looks any more or less like the Gungaga reactor to me. That's something that's like the best guess for what this could be, because I don't know what else it'd be otherwise. Obviously, the quality's not the best in terms of like Square Enix always, like their videos, whatever they are, trailers, everything is always just like shit quality. I don't know what that's about. But it looks like a cool location. It's kind of overgrown, rusty equipment, right? And you can see what looks like a crane in the background. I don't know how big the location is going to be, how explorable it's going to be, but if it is a Gungaga reactor, it looks a lot better than it does in the original. And I hope we get like more lore, more story for this, because I don't even know what there is other than it being a destroyed reactor. I don't know like the history behind it. I don't know if that exists anywhere. It's kind of interesting just because we have the English version of stuff here. It's the first time that I'm seeing it anyways. They show off like the chocobo digging or whatever, which we've seen in like the TGS gameplay, but it's obviously in English now, so we can see what the chocobo digs up. He digs up a Play Arts sweeper, which I believe is like a collectible figure that you can get in the game. I think we've been told that before somewhere. There's like figurines that you can collect or whatever, so I thought that was kind of cool. So they show a little bit of the Calm flashback, like demo gameplay and story elements and things like that. We haven't really talked about this on the channel. It's not new, obviously. This has been out there for a while. People got to play this. We haven't got to play it yet or talk about it. Mostly because I didn't know if we could, just because like I didn't know if I could like take other people's like playthroughs and talk about it, discuss it, whatever the fuck. But now that this is actually officially out there from like Square Enix themselves, we can obviously look at it and talk about it. Again, nothing to break down from it. I just think it looks pretty cool. Kind of interesting from this is we got to see the Midgard Zolom in one of the trailers, of course, but with this gameplay, we actually get to see kind of the beginnings of it coming up out of the water before it like raises up and like screams at us or whatever. Kind of cool. So there's a few takeaways from this. For one, the size of the Midgard Zolom, that's something we've talked about before and something people pointed out from the trailer, that it doesn't look as big as it did in the original, but you do see that it's kind of curled up as it's like raising up and stuff, but you see like also its tail's going around our group. So it does seem like it's a lot bigger than what it seemed like it was in the trailer. We're just not seeing it like fully standing up all the way, and maybe it does that in the fight like it did in the original FF7. Also, some other takeaways from this is right before we get the reveal of the Midgard Zolom, we see in the very far distance like some little creatures running away. I don't know what that is exactly. Also, the Midgard Zolom's like surrounding Cloud, Barrett, and Red 13. That might tell us who like the boss fight party is going to be. I don't know if we can decide other people, if the full party's with us in that moment, and they're kind of in the background fighting. You got to use like Red 13, Barrett, and Cloud. I don't know. But that's who's at least in the cutscene. They're rolling some like basic gameplay and synergy attacks and stuff, but they show Cloud doing a summoning animation. We have zero indication of who it is he's summoning. They just kind of roll like the summon gameplay we've seen in the previous trailers and things like that. Alexander, Kujata, and Odin. However, an additional scene when it comes to the Odin part, because obviously with the trailer we've seen people point out that like Odin was fighting the Midgard Zalm. We actually do see him like charge in for the attack like he did in the trailer, but they actually show him kind of finishing the attack, which is kind of cool because that again that is new. And then here towards the end, we get to see some of the mini games, some more of the gameplay, and I kind of talked about this already, but we do get to see like just some newer gameplay aspects that I don't think they've actually shown off yet, other than here. We then get to see a bit more of the G-Bike gameplay, and this was never one of my favorite like mini games from the original FF7. I didn't hate it, didn't necessarily love it. The motorcycle gameplay is kind of fun in Remake, I'd say, so this has some potential to be pretty fun too. It looks kind of cool. We also get like another kind of extended look at the fighting mini game, the virtual fighter mini game, where it's kind of like rock, paper, scissors or whatever. Not really anything to break down from this either. They give us a pretty extensive look at the piano minigame, but we actually got an even bigger look at this with the Tokyo Game Show presentation, so we don't really need to see this anymore. Moving on from there, though, we do get to see the Mog House gameplay minigame stuff, and that's probably the most interesting thing from all of this, just because we get a little bit into what this is. And obviously, Mog House is like, in some ways, iconic from the original FF7. I never knew how to do that shit with the minigame until looking it up online, like the guide. And it's like super, super simple once you know how to do it, but I can never figure it out. It's kind of interesting that they're moving it from like a minigame in the Gold Saucer to an actual thing in the world. And again, you'll see that there's like a Moogle merchant, so maybe we can buy stuff from them once we do this little storyline thing or whatever.
Welcome to our Moogle Emporium. Mooglets are having too much fun to come back on their own, so I want you to round them up.
Fine. See what I can do.
Still some questions, obviously, like the mechanics of the gameplay are trying to like dodge attacks and like bombs and explosives and things like that or whatever. I don't know exactly what we're doing to round up the Mooglets, but interesting thing from this though is like the whole point of that minigame from the original FF7 was to like find Moggy or Mog a date or whatever, get him a girlfriend, and then like he has a family or whatever. And like in this game, he already has a family. Does that confirm that this is a sequel? I think it does. This is going to be like a repeatable minigame that you can come back and keep doing over and over or something like that. Because we're told that there are a bunch of minigames in the world, but a lot of them are like one-off ones. Like it's like you go to an area, there's going to be like a minigame or something there that you do, and it's kind of it. Like you just do it that like one time or something. Maybe you can always repeat them in all the areas, but it's not, maybe like a Fort Condor sort of thing where you don't have to keep coming back here and keep catching these Mooglets or whatever. I don't entirely know. Imagine like once you catch them for the Moogle Merchant or Moggy or whatever his fucking name is, that'll be kind of the end of it, I would assume. I don't know. We had some good stuff you could buy from Moggy and the Sector 5 slums, right? So if this is like a Moogle that we can buy shit from like that, there'd be some good stuff to get from here, man. Actually, something else that I like from this, kind of weirdly enough, that I've yet to talk about since we got the reveal of Mog House being in the world, is we talked about before about like kind of like Red 13 species and how like this Final Fantasy is kind of different than other Final Fantasies where there's not these like weird abstract creatures in the world. Like Moogles don't necessarily exist in the world, right? We have like the stuffed Moogle that Case rides on the original FF7, and we have the Mog minigame in Gold Saucer, but you don't come across Moogles in the world. And now it's going to be different with the Remake project. In Rebirth, there is going to be actual Moogles in the fucking world, and I think that's kind of cool, man. Something about that I really enjoy. Yeah, putting aside obviously the magical, mystical stuff in the FF7 world, it's pretty grounded in reality. There's really just the humans and like a little bit of Red 13 species. Maybe you consider like the Cetra a different kind of species. I don't know, but it's mostly just humans, right? Whereas you look to something like 8, there's like the humans, but there's also like the Shumi, I think it's called, and like other different races, like Moombas and things like that. And 9's got all kinds of different races, but there's also Moogles in the world, and like 7 just doesn't have that. And now things are going to be a little bit different with the Remake project, and again, I kind of like that. Actually, something else that might be worth pointing out from this, and I just want to point out only because of the Cody quote we looked at the other day from like the New York Comic Con panel, where we talked about like, Cloud transforming into something outside of himself. During this minigame, when Cloud's like getting hit and stuff, he has the Moogle palms like above him or behind him or on his head or something like that. And maybe it's possible if you get hit enough or something in this minigame, like Cloud becomes a Moogle or starts talking like a Moogle, saying Kupo or something. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. The last thing that's even kind of relevant from all this is they show a little bit of Queen's Blood. It's kind of similar to what we got with the TGS presentation, but this time it's in English, which is cool. The card pool is a little bit different, but because it's in English, we can actually read what some of the cards' effects are. There's only one card that actually has an effect, but at least it's something. Also, the woman that Cloud plays from the TGS trailer, we get to hear what she says in English, and she talks a little bit of shit.
You're here to get your ass handed to you in a QB match.
The only card that actually has an effect is the Moo card. All the other ones that they showed just says this card doesn't have an effect. But it says, raise the power of allied cards on affected tiles by 1 when this card is in play. So obviously you can see when you lay it down, it affects the right tile and the up tile from that. And then there's a red tile below the white tile on the card. I don't know what that means. Again, we don't know what the fucking rules are of this game. We see that there's like pawns on the board. Cards have power. This card increases the power of other allied cards or whatever. In the top left of each card, there's a pawn symbol, and some cards have 1, some cards have 2. We just don't know what the rules are exactly yet of this game. But yeah, there's at least a card effect. So if you look at like the board, you can look on the right side of it and see like your opponent's name. And the woman does say, "I'm Zahira." And she keeps on talking as like the gameplay is going, but the music is so fucking loud, you can't possibly understand what she's saying.
I'm Zahira. Pleasure. Just like Holmes' wall, I
My dudes, that's pretty much it. As far as I'm aware, that's like all the things that are worth talking about from this. It's really just them reiterating shit we've seen before in terms of like the gameplay and what's shown off and stuff. But it's almost like they re-recorded it for this presentation, and maybe whether intentional or not, showed off more than they wanted to, except for the obvious stuff like the Mog House stuff. Like obviously they wanted to show more of that gameplay. There's some cool stuff from this. At least we got something from Thailand Game Show. A lot of us weren't even sure whether we'd get anything at all, and while like 99% or so of this like 9-minute footage is shit we've seen before, at least there was some new stuff to take from it. I'm not really sure when we can expect another like trailer or anything like that when it comes to Rebirth, because we're getting closer and closer to this game dropping. We're just a little over 4 months from release. And I've said that I think in the previous video that I expected to be like another like 2 or so trailers, because like Remake had a shit ton of like 4 or 5 like big trailers and like a couple of small trailers, and 16 had like a kind of a similar amount, right? So there's going to be a couple more trailers I would think for this game, but I just don't know when and where. Some people are looking towards the Game Awards, which I believe is in December. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, that'll be about 3 months from like the last time we had a trailer, and like when we got Summer Game Fest, it was like 3 months until we got like the State of Play trailer and like the TGS and stuff like that. So Game Awards makes a lot of sense, and maybe like a launch trailer or something either in January or February. Like that might be it. I don't know. Anyways, that's the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter @DavidYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Low Gain, or leave it like Cobain.